Hi, and welcome to a presentation and diet book critique of The Carnivore Code by Paul Saladino. My name is Bob Viscount, and here is an overview of what we'll be talking about today. First, we'll go over an introduction and a little overview of the book itself. I'll tell you about my research question and the objective of my research. We'll go through the methods I took to study this, the results I found, and a discussion to translate what the results mean and provide some important context to them. Finally, I'll conclude with a take-home message. Before we get into the book, I want to zoom out a little bit to talk about why a diet book critique, whether it's this book or really any diet book critique, is important. Obesity is a worldwide health issue. And in 2022, 1 in 8 people in the world are living with obesity. Additionally, obesity has doubled since 1990 worldwide. There are various methods to achieve weight loss, including a lot of different diet types. A relatively new concept, the carnivore diet. The book, The Carnivore Code by Paul Saladino, proposes a diet that is only animal products to help achieve weight loss. It also discusses how consuming plants might actually be inhibiting weight loss. The author, Paul Saladino, discusses why he thinks plants are bad for human health, mainly by focusing on some very specific biochemical pathways and their theoretical outcomes. He believes the carnivore diet makes sense from an evolutionary, medical, nutritional, and biochemical perspective. He goes into a variety of reasons about why plants could actually be inhibiting weight loss. A little bit about this diet itself. So the carnivore diet is a type of ketogenic diet because there are no carbohydrates in that diet. By definition, it is also an elimination diet because it eliminates carbohydrates. So what does this diet look like? Well, here is a sample day of eating. This is what the author gives as an example of a day of eating in his life following the carnivore diet. I'm not going to read all the parts of it, but my takeaway from this is, wow, that is a lot of meat. Keep in mind, this is a day in and day out menu for the author and what he's proposing in the Carnivore Code. Let's get to my objective and my PICO question, what I'm seeking to answer here. Among adult males and females aged 18 and older with overweight and obesity, how does a very low carbohydrate diet, defined as less than 10% of calories from carbs or 20 to 50 grams per day, versus a diet meeting the AMDR for carbohydrates, which is defined as 45 to 65% of calories from carbohydrate, affect weight loss? One quick note, just to keep things simple for this presentation, I will refer to these two types as low carb or low fat. My methods. I searched PubMed and Google Scholar. I only looked at trials involving humans, and the participants were all adults ages 18 and older. I looked at randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses, although in my results, I only used randomized controlled trials. And I also leveraged the cited by feature on Google Scholar. The search terms I used were based on a very low carbohydrate diet and also a keto diet or ketogenic diet. What I found when searching was that the keto diet, by definition, covered the carbohydrate quantities that I was interested in my PICO question. And I also used some mesh terms, which you can see below. These were on PubMed only. Broadly, here are the results. Participants with overweight or obesity lose weight on a very low carbohydrate diet as well as a low fat diet. There is no significant difference in the amount of weight loss between these two diet types. If we get into the results, I looked at 7 randomized controlled trials, and I'm grouping them into 2 groups. This one is group number 1, where calories were matched, either intentionally or unintentionally. And what the authors in all 4 of these studies found was when calories are equivalent, a very low carbohydrate diet was not superior to a low fat diet for weight loss. You can see that these 4 studies ranged from 12 weeks long to 12 months long, and all of them found the exact same thing. The rest of the studies were in a bucket which I call uneven parameters. In these studies, calories were unequal between comparator groups. Some of them were 12 weeks long, while another was 6 months long. Now, 2 of the 3 here still found that there was no significant difference between low carb and low fat when it came to body weight loss, and both groups lost weight. The one notable difference was the last study on this slide by Al-Amri et al. It was 6 months long, and it found that the group following a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet lost significantly more weight than the comparator low fat diet. Some important context, which we'll discuss later, was the fact that the total number of calories that were actually consumed was not stated in this trial. The QCC ratings were a mix of positive and neutral. Overall, I found that all of the studies I looked at, the procedures would result in improved outcomes, the authors studied something that the population would care about, the focus of the intervention was a common concern, and the interventions were all feasible. Now, of the studies that got a neutral rating, these were for various reasons. A big one was because of population disparities that affected generalizability of the results. Harvey et al. Noted specifically that due to attrition, and this is participant follow-up during the trial, there wasn't a lot of it, so it impacted the statistical power of the results. And finally, the study by DeRosa et al. Had such a large caloric disparity between comparator groups that this really masked the impact of the diet types. Let's get to the discussion. 6 of the 7 studies found that a very low carbohydrate diet and a low fat diet can both be used to achieve weight loss with no significant differences between groups. Let's get back to that one exception by Al-Amri. Now, the context of the study should be recognized. One, it was on the shorter range of duration in the studies that I found. It was 6 months long. And the other thing was it did not disclose calories consumed by either group. Now, the timing is kind of important. So in another study by Saslow et al., she found that when a very low carbohydrate group ate 300 calories more than the low fat group, both groups still lost weight, and there was no statistically significant difference between the two at 12 weeks. DeRosa, which had a little bit of an alternate study design, looked at the time to achieve 5% body weight loss in a very low carbohydrate group or the low fat group. Now, in the DeRosa study, the authors found that the very low carbohydrate diet group achieved 5% weight loss in 1 month, while the low fat group did so in 3 months. This is important context because in shorter trials, this could be the result of glycogen reductions, which would result in total body water loss, but not necessarily body fat loss. A review, which was not included in the results, actually found that very low carbohydrate diets may induce more weight loss in trials less than 6 months in duration. Now, in trials that lasted 12 months with calories matched, both groups ended up losing weight with no significant difference. It would appear that when evaluating weight loss, it's probably a good idea to set trial duration at greater than 6 months, with 12 months being optimal. However, one important thing to note is that this could create a challenge in terms of follow-up. Harvey et al. Found that it was hard to find participants that would continue to follow up for 12 months in a weight loss trial. The study by Harvey et al. Lacked statistical power because 49% did not complete the study. So this is just something for authors to consider in future weight loss trials. The strength of my search is that the results are repeatable. There are many studies evaluating weight loss among patients with overweight and obesity and comparing diets of varying macronutrient compositions. Studies also very frequently describe the exact compositions explicitly. The limitations of my search are one, I couldn't find any studies that specifically compared a carnivore diet to a diet that included plants for weight loss. And typically, studies looking at carbohydrate quantity among patients with overweight and obesity often looked at a focus on glycemic control, and those were not included in this study. Additionally, I found a lot of studies, and I only used one of them, but the studies looking at carbohydrate quantities below 50 grams per day often used a very low calorie ketogenic diet that's less than 800 calories a day, and they did this to achieve those low carb totals. However, this diet type requires medical supervision and is really not feasible for the general population. So the take-home message, there's no best diet for weight loss. A very low carbohydrate diet will not provide any more weight loss than a low fat diet. However, both diets will help participants achieve weight loss. The inclusion of plants and/or carbohydrates from other sources will not prevent weight loss as claimed by Saladino in the Carnivore Code. Diet should be tailored to each person's preferences, and this may help for adherence to allow for a sufficient amount of time to reach a person's goal body weight. Thanks very much for your time today.